and welcome to ChapterSkip. I'm Mark.
And I'm Sean, and we're bringing you movie reviews with a twist.
And today we're reviewing Odd Thomas.
Odd Thomas tells of an odd young chap called Odd. Now that may seem a little weird because you would have thought the odd part was describing his personality, but in fact there was a slight mix-up on his birth certificate and he ended up being called Odd instead of Todd.
The story of Odd Thomas comes from the pages of a Dean Koontz novel of the same name, and this isn't the first time that Dean Koontz's work has been adapted for the big screen, as there was also the 1988 version of Watchers and the 1998 movie Phantoms.
Odd Thomas is written, directed and produced by Stephen Sommers. He's the guy behind the Mummy films, Van Helsing and G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra.
But let's not hold that against him, as he also made the rather fun little movie Deep Rising as well. The part of Odd Thomas is being taken care of by Anton Yelchin. Now you may remember Anton from his role in the Star Trek reboots where he played the part of Chekhov. He was also in Terminator Salvation and he regularly voices Clumsy Smurf in the Smurf films and games.
Odd, even though he is quite weird and harnesses some strange abilities, of which we'll delve into very shortly, does in fact have himself a lady friend called Stormy, who's played by Addison Timlin. And rounding off the main components of this flick is Chief Wyatt Porter, who is played by the awesome Willem Dafoe.
Willem, of course, having a much storied film career, but is probably most known for popping up in a bunch of Lars von Trier and Wes Anderson pictures, and of course to younger audience as playing Norman Osborn in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man series.
Now, we mentioned some strange abilities that Odd Thomas possesses, and to understand them you just have to imagine the kid from The Sixth Sense grew up and could still see dead people, but instead of just pointing out the dead people, the kid learned to do something about it.
So, Odd Thomas works in conjunction with Chief Porter to solve crimes of a homicidal nature, which is how the movie kicks off, and that's how we're introduced to Odd Thomas and what he can do with his supernatural powers. However, although he can see and speak to dead people, they can't speak back. Sean, do you remember that salesman from a little while ago?
Yeah, what was his name? Mick?
Says here in the paper his name is Rick.
What'd you ask?
Says here that he's been murdered, and no one knows what happened.
Let's have a look.
Have you finished the washing up yet?
There's so goddamn much of it!
Well, you should have been better at rock, paper, scissors then, shouldn't you?
How can you be better? It's a game of chance, surely.
That's because you're an idiot, Sean, and you don't know I've got a certain power that gave me the edge in winning.
Why are you laughing?
Nothing, just something funny in the paper. Go on, back to the washing up.
Mick?
I thought you were dead. Why are you here? And how come I can see you? Sorry, Dick. You're gonna have to speak up. I can't hear a word you're saying. Oh, 'cause you're a ghost, you can't speak. Brilliant, got it. Shall I help solve your murder? Right, what happened? He was at a disco, then there was a magician, and then he played football? You were walking down the road, someone pushed you, then they kicked you, and then they dealt some cards, and a flower grew. Oh, he's gone. I must have solved the murder. I wonder what that meant. Then the magician stick their finger up his bum. Weird.
With Odd having this supernatural gift, you would thought he would be as popular as the Ghostbusters were in the 80s, with a cool job like them too. But in fact, Odd likes to sell for the quiet and inconspicuous life as a short order fry cook, with a little supernatural superheroism on the side. Well, that is until one day a gentleman walks into Odd's diner and is followed by some strange, creepy, ghostly creatures called Bodaks.
Bodaks appear whenever someone is going to die in a rather violent and grandiose manner, and on this particular day, Odd sees more of them than he has ever seen in his entire life, which means that some very bad shit indeed is going to go down. Oh, and seeing ghosts and freaky creatures isn't all that Odd can do, as he also seems to have prophetic dreams and an ability called psychic magnetism, whereby he can think of a person and then wander around aimlessly and somehow manage to find the person he was thinking about.
What was that about fingers at bums?
Nothing important. Actually, that reminds me, I'm going to nip out for a bit.
Alright, can I borrow your laptop for a second?
Yeah, no problem.
Cheers.
See you later.
Bye.
What Sean doesn't know is that I have the power of psychic magnetism. I can't tell him though. He'll just want me to go and find him Scarlett Johansson. I need to use my powers for good. Ooh, I wonder if I could find Sasha Grey. Oh, I think I'm getting close. I can smell her musky scent. Yeah, she's not up this tree. Wait a minute, this is my house! Porn star Sasha Grey is in my house! I'm going in. Sean! What are you doing?
What? No, what? eBay!
Yeah, smack it on my pretty little face.
Oh, Willie. Even though I didn't know this film was based on a book before I watched it, I think Stephen Sommers did really well in making it feel like it could come from a novel or even the comic book world, as there were some great ideas in the transitions between scenes which almost felt like you were fingering through the pages of a book or indeed a comic.
The Bodaks were a really good idea, and at times they had the potential to be quite creepy, such as one scene in particular where they were creeping about in the bedroom of some sleeping children.
Now for me, the Bodaks were a really cool concept, with their translucency and their ability to sort of meld from one shape to another seamlessly. Imagine, if you will, if the Predator, an alien, and T-1000 had a weird three-way baby, then you would have a Bodak.
Now all this might sound quite interesting with all its paranormal shenanigans, but unfortunately for me, the film wasn't that interesting or entertaining. The performances felt flat, with the exception of Willem Dafoe of course, and there was never any time that I felt invested in the characters or the events. Odd and Stormy have been given this strange, quirky relationship, but for two people that have been together ever since they were children, they just didn't feel like a couple that was in love, and they don't seem to know that much about each other either.
I found that the story, on a whole, was a decent one and was told pretty well too. For a majority of the movie, I felt like I knew what was going on and everything felt cohesive. Although there were a few moments that left me feeling lost, but they soon turned around eventually as you put pieces together. I thought the dark humour added to the story pretty well too, and it was subtle without ever being too over the top and unnecessary.
Now, a big problem for me is that the majority of the characters were incredibly dumb. For example, there's a moment in the film when Stormy and Odd are running away from a guy twice their age who walks like he shit his pants. And even though Odd has already explained to the audience that he's learned how to fight, they still seem to think that running away is the best option. And if that wasn't bad enough, it was also marred by the terrible writing, which meant that whilst hiding from the aforementioned unfit shit pants guy, their dialogue goes something like, "Let's call the cops! There's no time!" And then they proceed to dick around for 5 minutes.
I found this to be a cool little movie that managed to keep me entertained for around 100 minutes. It felt like a nice mixture between R.I.P.D. and The Frighteners with a dash of John Dies at the end, topped with a light sprinkling of Ghostbusters and The Sixth Sense. I know that the writer of the novel, Dean Koontz, has written several sequels, so we might get to see what happens to Odd Thomas further down the road, and I'd be more than up for watching more.
As you've probably gathered already, I wasn't a fan of this movie. I found it poorly written and the characters flat, uninteresting, and worst of all, they were some of the most unintentionally stupid characters I've seen in quite a while. If you want to see a clever, well-made movie about a guy with paranormal abilities that grabs your attention right from the start, then go and watch John Dies at the end, and leave this rubbish to its inevitable bargain bin fate.
Thanks for watching this Odd Thomas movie review. For those that have seen the film, we want to hear your thoughts on the flick in the comments below. For those that haven't, post a comment anyways and tell us if you'll be checking this out in the near future. If you enjoyed this review and want to see more, then go ahead and subscribe. And if you're feeling extra kind, you can always check out the new ChapterSkip podcast channel. For links to that and more, head to the video description. Thanks. What? Nothing. Homework. Research. What? No. Homework. Excel spreadsheet. Twitter. What? Nothing. Amazon. What was that about fingers at bums?
Nothing important. Time's up. Yeah.